All right. I think I did it right. I think I did it right. Somebody tell me if you can hear my voice, my mouth making noise on here. Anybody hear me? I hate to think I was talking and nobody was hearing my great pearls of wisdom. So somebody get in the comments. Tell me if you can hear me. All right. Sue says she can hear me. Cool. So, well, welcome everybody. I got 18 of you logged in at the moment. Hopefully, we'll get a few more. And I want to start off with some shout outs. I miss doing this with you guys. Not that I miss COVID or the shutdown. Don't get that wrong. But I really enjoyed doing these back when we were doing this with the COVID shutdown. So I don't know that I want to go every night for 3 months like I did there, but appreciate you guys being on here with me. Got a couple of shout outs to give. Amy Hogshead, how you doing? And happy Tuesday to you. Hey Susan, thanks for tuning in. Parker, what's going on, man? Everybody will refer to Parker as Bishop Miley. Everybody get in the comments, say hi, Bishop Miley. And let's see, Joyce Koenig. Hey, Joyce, good to see you here tonight. Angie and I talked earlier today, so I knew she was going to be here. And how did the dinner go? I went over to Angie. I went over to get my oil change today, like I said I was going to, and actually I was in and out in 10 minutes, and it was like 4:30, so it was too early. So I came home, so I didn't make it over to the serve at call. So sorry about that, but hope you guys had a good time. And hey, Linda, good to have you here. And awesome. Well, tonight, if you want to grab your Bibles, we're gonna do a little Bible study. We're gonna be looking at Matthew chapter 24, and I want you guys to get on and make some comments and answer some questions, and be a part of what's going on. Also, if you wouldn't mind, right above my head, right about there, it looks like, or maybe down on the bottom, I'm not sure. There's a like button. If you click the like, that would help get the algorithm for YouTube to get out, so more people can see us. So if you click like, I'd appreciate that. And oh my word, is that Matt Clements? Is that Matt Clements in the comments? Matt, it's good to see you, buddy. I have missed hearing from you. I hope things are going well. And great. And yeah, Jess, Bishop Miley, you already knew about that, so that's no big shock to you. So, but yeah, we're going to be looking at Matthew 24 tonight. Our purpose in this is to be able to do both parts of Advent. Advent has we're doing a second part Advent with Matt Clements in the house. I'm excited about that. So the two parts of Advent. Advent is supposed to be the preparation for the celebration of Jesus' birth, which is pretty common. We all knew that one. But the other part of that, the much lesser known purpose of Advent, is to be able to prepare ourselves for the return of Jesus. So for Advent this year, I want to use Tuesday nights to do that part of it. And then we'll do preparation for Jesus' birth on Sunday morning. And since you guys are here, the 26 of you who are logged in, which I thank all of you for being here, we will be Sunday, sneak preview. We're looking at the shepherds. What are the shepherds showing up at Jesus's birth? What was the purpose of that? And I was writing the sermon today, and I got an idea. So we'll talk about that on Sunday. I've been running into a little bit of a problem with my computer. This computer I'm on right now has been crashing. It's crashed twice over the weekend, and I lost a big portion of a sermon, a funeral I was writing, and then I actually lost the first draft of the sermon for Sunday, and I had to rewrite the last little bit of it. And I got to tell you, having your computer break down on Black Friday / Cyber Monday weekend was great. So I got on and ordered a new one, and I'm looking forward to that being here. But for whatever reason, if I vanish, the computer may have crashed. I don't know. It hasn't been cooperating very well. So hopefully we can get through tonight, and then but hopefully by next week I'll be on my new one. So, all right. So with that being said, let me get my keyboard out of the way here. I'm not going to need this. Matthew 24. So we're going to be looking at Matthew 24 tonight because this is one of the places where Jesus speaks of his return. And any of you who've got your Bible open and skimming down that probably have noticed that. And to the last couple of days, and then today, as I was working on getting some background information I can share with you here tonight, I had a really, really hard time reading this and not hearing it in a modern context. I know there's a lot of people out there that want to make the claim that the Bible is this ancient book that doesn't really speak to today. Well, we're going to read this tonight, and I'm going to let you guys decide if this speaks to us or not, because uh, I mean, let's be honest, nobody said it better than Jesus, and we're going to see that here tonight. So, all right, hey Don Reininger, MacBook Pro pass. I want to be able to use it, and Apple is for people way less intelligent than me. And hey, Bill and Crystal, good to see you guys here tonight. So, all right, cool. I want to turn off my phone before you guys all get the hankering to call me, and you hear my phone beeping in the background. Let me turn this off real quick here. All right, so Matthew 24. One of the things that I want to do here is, and whenever we read Bible, you can't always do this, but whenever you can, you should, is to be able to look at the context. What was going on at the particular moment when this conversation happened? We're actually having this passage. We've got about 27 or so verses of Jesus talking about his return. Probably one of the longest uninterrupted speeches from Jesus, with the exception maybe of the Sermon on the Mount. But this is a really long section where he talked. You know, we'll see some longer sections where he talked in the Gospel of John, but one of the longer ones that was recorded by Matthew. And I want to be able to go through this with you tonight. But let's look at the context. So we're here in Matthew 24, and we're here in verse 1. And you want to keep in mind where we are. So this is what's happening in the context around. So this is verse 1. And I'm reading for the New Living Translation, and there are going to be some places where we're going to have some translation stuff, because some of these words, as I was doing some study, don't come through as clearly in English as we might like. So we'll talk about that. So your translation might be a little different than mine. I'm reading for the New Living Translation, and here we go. All right, verse 1. As Jesus was leaving the temple grounds, his disciples pointed out to him the various temple buildings. Okay, so this is where we are. They are in a temple celebration, perhaps Passover. I'm not sure what it is, but they're coming out of the temple. And if you've ever watched any those documentaries or something on what the temple was like, the temple was something everybody was proud of, as well they should have been. It was probably one of the larger structures in Jerusalem at that time, and it was a source of pride because they used to put a lot of work into these buildings. And so the disciples were just saying, "Wow, look at this place! Place is amazing!" And so they were really taken by that. And so it's in that context, coming out of temple, coming out of the service, and Jesus may have done some speaking there that day. Disciples are all leaving, and they're kind of full of it right now. And they're like, "Jesus, this place is amazing," which, I mean, it was. So that's where they are. So they're like, Jesus, look around. And here's in verse 2. But Jesus responded, "Do you see all these buildings? I tell you the truth, they will be completely demolished. Not one stone will be left on top of another." Well, that's kind of a buzzkill. I mean, that's not appreciating the beauty of the temple as they thought. That's where it is. And one of the things the Bible never gives us, or very rarely gives us, is direction on how people said things. I mean, you know the old saying, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. Well, I don't know how he says this. Was it tongue in cheek? Did he act? I mean, was he angry? Was it like, "Come on, guys, it just rocks"? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how he said it. But one of the things, though, that ended up happening is Jesus clearly said this in a very public setting. And we know that because and we're going to actually, Matthew's actually going to tell us that here in a second. But we know that it was public because when Jesus was on trial, this was what he was accused of. If you go to flip over 2 chapters to Matthew 26, and you're reading about Jesus's trial, you're going to find out that they were trying to accuse him of something, and they couldn't really come up with anything. Till finally, one guy said, "Well, I heard him say he's going to tear the temple down," and they're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, that's it. He's terrible." Now, I got to say, he doesn't say that. He says it will be torn down. He didn't say he would tear it down, but misinformation. We don't really worry about that kind of stuff. But this is him saying this line is what ends up being the accusation that they threw out in front of the Sanhedrin, and then they took him to the Romans and all these different things. This is what he was accused of saying he was going to tear down the temple. Now, and we have it right here. He didn't say he was going to tear it down, but that's where he's at. So he says that the disciples, I'm sure, are taken back a little bit. So they're like, wow, okay, Jesus got a little edge here tonight. And so they're like, okay. So then verse 3. So that's first two verses. Now we go to verse 3. It says, later Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. I did some checking. The Mount of Olives is actually a place that still exists today. I found it on Google Maps. So the Mount of Olives was a place that still exists today. And if you were going to drive, which obviously the disciples and Jesus were not driving, but to drive it according to Google Maps, it is 1.5 kilometers from the temple to the Mount of Olives. So it's I'm sorry, 1.5 kilometers. Listen to me being all European. 1.5 miles. It was about not quite 3 kilometers. So that's about how far it was. 1.5 miles. A typical walk. Could have walked it in half an hour pretty easily. So it wasn't a long way away, but this was the outskirts of town. Now today, if you look up the Mount of Olives, it's inside this urban area. But at the time, this would have been like going out to the suburbs. So they went out into the countryside into this place called the Mount of Olives, and it's still there today. So the original, man, look at the temple, and Jesus is like, well, this place gonna fall down. Don't worry about it. That was public, witnessed by many people. So now they go out there, and the disciples now have a question, as you could imagine they might. Okay, so sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately because Jesus yelling that the temple is going to fall down, probably in public, probably not the conversation they want to have. So the disciples came to him privately. They said, tell us, when will this happen? Now, that is the same question every one of us would have asked had we been there. I don't, and Jesus doesn't even fault the disciples. He seems very happy to talk about this. But that is exactly what we all would want to know. If I'm going to say that this building's going to fall down, I kind of like to know when that's going to be, so I make sure I ain't there when it falls down. And so that's a very practical question. So when will this happen? And is there like going to be fireworks? Is it going to be something falling from heaven? Is it going to be an earthquake? Is it going to turn blue before it falls over? What's going to happen so that we know, so that we can get out of the way? Okay, so when will this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world? Okay, so they were equating, and again, I don't know that this is an incorrect inference on their part, but the destruction of the temple meant the end of the world. Now, we now know that the temple was destroyed, and it did not bring about the end of the world. The temple was destroyed about 35 years or so after Jesus was resurrected. The temple was finally torn mostly to the ground. There's one wall of it still standing today, but in about 70 AD, it was destroyed. So we know today it didn't happen. But in the disciples thing, I mean, having the temple, this beautiful place we go worship, was a place that they wanted to keep. And so they were equating that with the end of the world. Okay, so they asked the question. And now Jesus goes into, like I said, this almost 27 verses talking about exactly when this will happen. So let's see what he says. Verse 4. Jesus told them, don't let anyone mislead you. That's his first statement. Don't let anybody mislead you. That's his first warning. It's not the skies are going to part. It's not the trumpet blast. It's not angels flying around. It's not, 7-headed monsters coming out of the sea. Not any of that stuff. Don't let anybody mislead you. And in fact, that's going to be kind of the theme of this whole passage we're going to look at tonight, is the danger of being misled. And we're going to talk about that as we go along. So he says, don't let anyone mislead you. And why would that happen? Verse 5. For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and they will deceive many. Okay, so everybody's going to claim to be me, or everybody's going to claim to have seen me, or everybody's going to claim to know where I'm at. And I'm going to tell you right now, and he's going to be very specific as to why that's going to be dangerous later in the passage. So we're going to get to that. But he's going to make it very clear, if somebody come along saying that, don't worry about it. Okay, because that's not how this is going to work. Okay. Now, along with the rumors of, is he over there? Is he out there? Where's he at? Verse 6. And you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. See, one of my biggest things that I fight against in being a pastor, the thing that bothers me a lot, is whenever we talk about the return of Christ, it's like this ominous thing. And as we're going to see today, yeah, there's going to be some frightening things happen, but the return of Christ is not what that is. the world is actually going to be falling apart on its own. Christ is going to come as the Savior. That word we use to describe him all the time. That's how he's going to come to rescue us. So the fact of Jesus returning, that's not the scary part. Yeah, there's going to be some terrifying things happening. We're going to look at that, but it's not the return of Jesus. With this big judgmental, everybody's going to burn in hell thing. That's not exactly what this is about. And I feel like we have put the wrong shade on this by making it something scary, that we're trying to scare the hell out of people to help them realize how much God loves them. It's an approach that I can't get down with. Okay, so hear wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. So as the wars and rumors of wars. Now, the interesting thing about that's an interesting phrase, and I looked that up. There wasn't anything interesting in the translation that I found, but it says you're gonna hear about wars and rumors of wars. And I thought, well, what would that be? What does that mean? And suddenly I realized it's not about what's happening, because y'all know as well as I do, rumors and truth don't generally mesh very well. So if you're going to hear about this stuff, what you're hearing is people talking. And I think what Jesus is suggesting here, I think what Jesus is flat out saying here, is that when the world really starts coming apart, everybody's going to focus on the negative, which, we don't ever do that today. But people are going to focus on negative. They're going to say, oh, yeah, wars, rumors of wars. And I heard that this person's mad and they're fighting over there and all these things. And all they're ever going to talk about is stuff that's negative. I'm not going to comment on that, but that's what it's going to be. Everybody's going to focus on what's bad. And that's going to be a symptom that we have lost hope. You don't talk about only bad stuff. You don't make up bad stuff to talk about if you have hope. So I think that the fact that Jesus says you're going to hear about wars and rumors of wars, because that's what everybody talks about. Everybody talks about what's wrong. They complain about everything. It's a mindset. I don't have any hope that anything's going to do. You're exactly right, Matt. It sounds exactly like today. And so they give up. They don't have any hope, so they completely give up. And Jesus says that's going to be a sign that once hope dies or goes away or is not held by the general population, the world is in trouble. And Jesus is going to draw a very clear distinction between the world and heaven. But the world is in trouble. And hi, Dennis and Trina. Welcome. Glad you guys are here. So, all right. Verse 7. So nation will go to war against nation. Now, I looked this one up. This nation go to war against nation, kingdom against kingdom. The term here is actually nation will rise up against nation. Now, I understand that does sound like a war, but the word translated here, war, is this rise up is a word that is used a lot in the New Testament. And guess who one of the people are that use it? If you remember to another holiday, I know we're coming up on Christmas, but there's another holiday called Easter. And a group of women went out to the tomb early on that morning, and they met an angel out there because Jesus was gone. And the angel said, he is not here. He has risen from the dead. Same word. So risen doesn't necessarily mean, war in any context. It could, but it simply means they're rising up against each other. Now, I think what Jesus was communicating to us, if you continue reading, is that he says nation will go to war against nation, or nation will rise up against nation. Kingdom will rise up against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. I look at all that as one thought, okay? You got nations and kingdoms, and they're rising up against each other, and there's famines and earthquakes. And instead of helping each other, they're trying to step on each other, trying to capitalize on things that are bad. Again, loss of hope. Somebody else's misfortune is my gain. Instead of looking to say, here are people in trouble, let's go help them. Let's go help them rebuild after this earthquake. Let's go try to help them get enough to eat during this famine. They're going to say, look how weak they are. Let's go take their stuff. That is a symptom of people with no hope. People with hope go and say, let's help them rebuild. Let's extend the hand of friendship when they need it, instead of capitalizing on their misfortune. So to me, I see Jesus having kind of a stream of consciousness here. All these things are working together. And we don't want to build community anymore. We don't want to be friends anymore. We don't want to help anymore. Not just nations and kingdoms, but we're going to see that people are going to feel that way too. As hope continues to wane, things are going to get worse. So, yeah, you're right, Matt. This is where we come in as Christians. Obviously, the church has been about, helping the widows and the orphans and the people who need help. That's what one of our primary functions have been since our inception. And we cannot give up that role and how important that is. And Jesus is making that very clear. The world is going to spiral out of control without hope. And so somebody's got to be the banner bearer on that one. Somebody's got to carry that torch because if hope goes away, a lot of other stuff goes with it. Okay, so what happens? Okay, so that's verse 9, earthquakes and misfortune and all these terrible things. Verse 8, but all this is only the first of the birth pains with more to come. So, okay, so it's going to start. Hope is the first thing that's going to go. And as hope begins to wane, as hope begins to fade, the next thing we're going to go through is jealousy. All right, so hope is the first thing we're going to lose. Next is jealousy. Now jealousy of what? Let's continue reading. Verse 9. Then you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You will be hated all over the world because you're my followers, and many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. Now, I read that and went, normally, if somebody's going to say, you're going to be hated, or you hate me, or I hate you, or when you're going to say that, normally there's like an explanation that goes with that. I hate you because you did this, or I hate you because you smell bad, or whatever it is. There's a motivation that causes me to do that. Jesus doesn't give one here. He doesn't say why you're going to be hated because you're just because you're a follower of Jesus, you're going to be hated. I mean, maybe, but I feel like there's going to be a little more motivation. So as I was running this through my mind today, I was thinking, okay, he just talked about how hope is waning and going away, and immediately that's going to spring into believers being hated. It all makes perfect sense if you think, if I don't have hope, the person I'm going to hate the most is somebody who does have it. Who has hope? Believers have hope. I mean, that's what Matt's talking about here in the comments. He's exactly right. We're going to spread the word in darkness. And people who don't have hope, they don't want to hear that crap. So what they want to do is they want to shut it out. I don't want to have hope. I want to live by whatever standard I want to live by. That doesn't sound familiar at all, does it? But that's what I want to do. And people who are preventing me from pursuing my whatever it is I want to pursue, and are trying to give me hope, I don't want no part of that. So that's why the believers are hated, because we believers have a hope that doesn't come from any place else. And because of that, that draws a target on us. And that's one of the problems they run into is people who don't have hope hate people who do. And y'all have seen that before. You know what I'm talking about. And all right, let's take a break here. Jump in the comments. Everybody tell me, you following me? Thank you, Matt, for making a few comments. Anybody else got any comments? Again, I'm in my office talking to myself, and I want to make sure that not everyone has logged off. Leaving me here. So everybody get in and say something, or make a comment, or just say hi, Tim, or speak up or something. Somebody get in and let me know you're still here. This is a very surreal experience. When Parker and I film the Rage podcast, it's a little different because at least he and I are there talking. When I'm here by myself, I'm literally in this room by myself. I know Jess is in the office here next to me, but I'm not necessarily talking directly to her. So, and Brian Lynch, how you doing, buddy? Glad to have you in. Amy, glad you're still here too. We're gonna continue. We're gonna get through this chapter tonight, but I want to make sure I got 34 people logged in. I appreciate you guys coming out. So, and very good. So, thanks, Trina. I knew I could count on you. All right, so people without hope attack people who have hope, and so we go from hope to jealousy. So that's the progression. All right, so jealousy begins by I want to destroy people who have hope. Okay, get that. Okay, so the next thing we come to then. So if I'm jealous, what do I want to do? When you're jealous of somebody, think about this. You've all either experienced jealousy or you've seen people who have jealousy, or you've been around. I mean, you guys are familiar with it. If somebody's jealous, what do they want to do? They want to be like you. They want to have what you want to have. That's what jealousy causes people to do, is to try to take something for somebody else. That's what it means to be jealous. If I'm looking at you and I'm jealous of your car, then I want to take your car. If I'm jealous of your house, I want to take your house. And that's what we. Oh, yeah, I got a bunch of comments here. Hi, Janet. Hi, Jan. Glad you and Scott are on. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for the thumbs up, Parker. And Jess apparently is not in the office next to me anymore. And hi, Beth. Glad you're here. And Angie, so far so good. All right, good deal. All right, so when you're jealous, what do you want to do? Well, you want to be like the thing you're jealous of. So what's the very next thing that happens? And so verse 10 says, many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. Okay. Verse 11, many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Now, why would false prophets start popping up? If we're told that if somebody hang on, I lost my train of thought. I'm going to get it back. If somebody is jealous of somebody who has hope, and they're so jealous that they're throwing them in jail and persecuting them and doing all these different things, why would anybody want to act like them? Okay, why would anybody want to act like people who are doing this kind of stuff? Because that's exactly what happens. They're putting out false prophets, even though they're persecuting the Christians. We said that right here. Yet people are being false prophets. So what they're doing is they're setting themselves up as the new people. Again, what a prophet does, speaks on behalf of God. They're setting themselves up as the new prophet. I'm the new guy or new person or whatever. And so I'm now going to speak on behalf of God, and I'm just going to say a bunch of stuff that God never said. That's a false prophet. And hey, Joyce. Yes, I heard you had a visitor today, and that young man was as touched by his visit with you as you were. So, all right, and very good. So, so that's what they do, is they're trying to put themselves in the role of the Christians and to be a part of what they're doing. And that's something you got to watch out for, because one thing that false prophets do is they are very, very good at sounding right, not being right, just sounding right. And that's what jealousy causes them to do. And you're right, Matt. They do want something God's people have, and unfortunately, unless you're a person of God, you're not going to have it. And you can try to fake your way into it, but it doesn't work. And yeah, Trina, I'm with you. Jealousy is a crushing thing, and it can do some crazy things. I do enough funerals for families that I get to see that a lot. So we know the world is, infected with it, I guess, for lack of a better term. So, but they're so jealous, though. Not only are they persecuting people who are actually prophets, actually working on behalf of God, actually, worshiping and having hope. Not only are those people persecuted, but they're trying to. Here, I'll use a big word for you. Usurp them. They're trying to overtake them. They say, all right, you got a message of hope. I want to be a deliverer of a message of hope. So I'm going to say, blah, 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 and that's going to be hope. And they're going to deceive people. It's very easy, very, very easy to deceive people when you're telling them what they want to hear. And that's what these false prophets are going to do. And that's why we got to watch out for that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Okay. All right, verse 12. I still want to read this verse because here we are. Verse 12, sin will be rampant everywhere. I don't have anything more to say about that. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. Why will love grow cold? Because that's step 3. We start out with the absence of hope that grows into jealousy, and then jealousy causes love to go cold. It just starves it out. Hope is the nutrition that love eats, and once there's no hope, love dies. And that happens in relationships with other people. It happens in friendships, happens in families, happens with God, happens with ourselves, happens with organizations. If I can't inspire you guys to have hope in Wing Street, you're not going to come anymore. There's no reason to be here if we can't have hope about the future of this church. Now, I would say if you don't have hope about the future of Wayne Street, you're not paying attention, but that's just me. But I'm just saying, think of organizations out there that have died or don't exist anymore. It is because they couldn't inspire hope in their followers that they're still going to be there, and they weren't there anymore. So love feeds on hope. Once hope in a relationship, or hope's in a situation, or hope in a job, or hope in a person, whatever it is, if that hope goes away, it won't happen immediately, but it won't take long for that love to starve to death. And that is exactly what happens here. Sin becomes rampant because everybody's now doing whatever they feel like they want to do, and love grows cold because it's starving to death. There's nothing there to feed it anymore. There's nothing to hope in, and that's miserable. I mean, look, I realize there are other things. I mean, being in an earthquake or being in a famine, yeah, sure, I'm sure that's miserable. But you want to try to live without hope? That's a silent misery, and that's what these people are living in, and that's why this jealousy just erupts out of control because as I lose my hope, love dies. I don't want to be a part or do anything, and I want to do my own thing, and I want to tell everybody that me doing my own thing is the right thing, even though it don't really work that way. And people eventually their love grows cold, and that causes all kind of problems as we're going to see. All right, so yeah, Trina, you're right. I mean, you're right, and actually, Trina, it's going to get worse in this passage. In fact, some of this stuff I'm not even going to be able to comment on because I'm just going to read it, and you guys are just going to go, because it's so straightforward. And we're getting to that here in a second. All right. All right. So, verse 13. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. Now, okay. So what Jesus is saying is, hope is real. Hope is available. You need to be able to live in a manner of hope to be able to continue to survive. Don't let the world take it away from you, because that's the danger we run into. Is if we allow our hope to go away, it's simply because we're paying attention to the wrong things, or we've gotten distracted, or we've bought into some garbage a false prophet was giving us, and experiencing that, our hope goes away. Jesus says, don't let that happen. That's why he warns about false prophets so passionately here, as he says, don't go down that road, because once you go down that road and listen and accept truth, accept as true things that are false, that it's a destruction of hope. And Jesus says, so worse if that is proper grammar. Yeah, Jan, you're right. Oh, Don, what's the word for love used here? That's a good question. I did not check that one. I'd be interested to know that one too. Don, if you want to click over to Blue Letter Bible and type that in and find out which word is used for hope there, I'd be interested to know. So, because I should have checked that one. I didn't even think about it. Yeah, but yeah, it does get worse, and it continues to get worse because as hope dies, most good things in life go with it. So, all right, he who endures to the end will be saved, and the good news about the kingdom will. Gotta like that word. Gotta like that word. Will. Good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world. Now, one of the things you have to understand in biblical times, and I understand this is Jesus talking, so he clearly had greater understanding than anyone else. But one of the things that you have to realize is their concept of the whole world was just, Israel, just that area. When Jesus says whole world, though, he's talking about like Ohio and Canada and Mexico and, all these different places that the people hearing this would have had no idea because they didn't know it existed at that time. And so he says the kingdom will be preached about in the whole world. Why? Because there's always going to be a remnant hanging on to hope. And friends, that's us. That's the 37 of us logged in here right now. That's the people who are in church here on Sunday. If our hope goes cold, love dies. Everybody. And that's why it's so important for us just to stand for what is good and what is true and honorable and all these things. Because if we let that go, nobody else is doing that. And that's why he says God's kingdom must be proclaimed everywhere, because everybody's going to have their hope inspired. And sometimes we're going to have to go the extra mile to make sure that the world is getting it. Because if we're not doing it, nobody else is going to. Nobody else has the gospel except for the Christians. Hey, Rosalind, I've seen many hurt people that love has gone cold, disowning their parents. Very sad. Praying for them. Yes. Definitely. Because, man, love going cold is, there are a few things in life worse than that. So, all right. So all the nations will hear it, and then the end will come. Now, what Jesus is saying here is that we're going to hold this out as long as we can. We're going to give everybody is going to get a chance, because that's what he says here. That the kingdom will be proclaimed everywhere, and then the end will not come until that happens. And in fact, we see this idea continued in the Apostle Paul in some of his writings, particularly in the book of Romans, that they believed that he could get out and do his missionary work in places, what was the known world at that time, that would usher in the return of Christ. And the reason everybody is going to get a chance to hear this message of hope, responsible in proclaiming it, because they're only going to hear it from us. And it's so important for us to continue there, because we're holding on to the keys to get out of the mess that is partially happening and continue happening here in Matthew 24. And so that's why he's talking about love in verse 12 is agape. Agape, which is great love for all of humankind and things like that, of the different kinds of love that there are. And Paul's my dude too, Matt. Love me some Paul. So, all right. So, a lot of these things are important for us to keep in there, because we are the beacon. We are the banner bearers for this. And if we're not out there doing it, they ain't going to hear it from any place else. All that's left, if you take God out of what we're reading here, and we've already agreed, and we're going to see it even more as we continue, is mayhem instruction. That's it. If we don't continue to inject God into the situation, destruction is all there is. It's the only option left. That's why this is so vitally important, that, looking at the end times. And that's why Jesus is stressing this so hard, is that people are counting on us to be able to continue to do the good work, to inspire hope, to help people see that things can happen that we never thought could happen, miraculous things. And it's going to take all of us working together to pull that off, because if we don't, destruction is all that's left. So let's continue reading. All right, then the end will come. All right, now verse 15, Jesus is going to change gears here a little bit and talk about some specific things. And I'm going to be honest with you, I really struggled with some of this, trying to come up with what the heck is going on here. But we're going to give it a try. So here's verse 15. The day is coming when you will see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. Reader, pay attention. So a little editorial comment there from a scribe at some point. Okay, I looked this up. In the closing chapter, or closing verses, actually, of the book of Daniel, if you're familiar with the book of Daniel at all, we all know the lion's den and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and all that. We know that. We know those stories. That's kind of the first half of Daniel. If you go read the second half of the book of Daniel, if you put one of those passages from the second half and Revelation together, you'd have a tough time telling which one was which, because they sound very much the same. And this sacrilegious thing that causes desecration, it was mentioned in Daniel in like the last couple of verses of the prophecy at the end in chapter 12. And it's talked about there, and Jesus picks up the idea here. Now, Daniel was prophesying about the end of time. If you go back and read Daniel chapter 12, you're going to find out that's exactly what he was talking about. Daniel makes reference to that. Jesus makes reference to that. Yet neither one of them explain what it is. There's a lot of different things. In the ancient context, one of the Roman emperors sacrificed a pig on the inside the temple. As you can imagine, that didn't go over well. Also, since the temple has been destroyed today, the Dome of the Rock, which is a Muslim temple, is now built on that place, and you can imagine the Jews not real thrilled with that. So it could, there's no specifics. We can only speculate as to what it was, but something very obvious is going to happen, that the whole world is going to be like, oh gosh, I don't know about that. Something is going to happen, and to make everybody just kind of go, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't want to speculate, because there are lots of things going on today that set my teeth on edge. But something is going to happen that everybody's going to finally go, this is probably going a little too far. We probably swung the pendulum out just a little far. So at that point, when we finally have crossed that line, and that thing happens that is so bad that even the unbelievers are like, ooh, ugh. This might, then there's going to be an awakening, according to this. And what's going to happen is once that happens, be ready, because you're going to have to run. That's what it says. And let's talk about that. Okay, so once you see this thing that makes everybody go, oh, wow, too much, too far. Verse 16, those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of the roof must not go down in the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it would be for pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath. For there will be greater anguish then than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. Okay, so once this thing happens, that we cross that line, whatever that line is, everybody needs to get away from it, because something bad is coming, and it's going to be awful. I looked up a couple of words here. In verse 20, it says, pray your flight will not be in winter on the Sabbath. I know a lot of people want to equate that with the rapture. I don't think that's what Jesus is talking about here, because the word flight here actually means escape. Pray that you have to, when the time comes that you see this thing, that you know that line has been crossed and it's time to flee, pray that your time to escape doesn't happen on the Sabbath or in winter or different things like that. Because, inclement weather conditions or things are just more things working against you. But whatever that is, run from it. Get away from it. I don't know if it's going to be a physical thing. I don't know if it's something with the temple. I don't know if it's a practice or a belief or a teaching or a person. But whatever it is, obviously, we're all going to know it when we see it. And we're going to be like, whatever that thing is, even the unbelievers are like, wow, no, I'm not going to do that. I could speculate as to what I think that is. I have a theory, but I don't know that I want to put that out there here in this public format. But if you want to text me, I'll tell you. But I don't know that I want to say it here. But whatever that is, whatever that thing is, or has been, or will be, when the time comes to get away from it, because that's the most dangerous thing going. And that thing, whatever it is going to be so bad that even unbelievers are going to be like, we got to escape this thing. And I tell you what, if enough people ask me in the comments, I'll say it here. I'll take a risk and tell you, but you're going to have to ask me, because I'm taking a chance by putting it out there. So, all right. So whatever this thing is going to cause anguish and horror and terror, even to the point that unbelievers are going to be fleeing away from it. And when the time comes to run, you got to run. So, all right, I got two do-its. If I can get a few more, I'll tell you. All right, so the things are going to get so bad that you guys are leading me down a bad road here. All right, I'm going to say this, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. If you want to ask me in today's context, what's the thing that's so bad that everybody and their brother ought to be able to see that it's evil and get away from? Pretty simple, friends. It's gender ideology. Trying to say that there is no such thing as men and women and we can change back and forth. The worst idea we ever had. Not only is that denied that we were created by a creator with a purpose in mind, it also says that we can do better than he did, and that's not a place anybody ever ought to be. So there it is. I don't want to go any farther with that, but if you want to ask me what that thing is today, that's what my theory would be. So jump in the comments and flame on me now. So go ahead. All right. So things are going to get so bad with that we're going to have some mercy. So verse 22. In fact, unless that time of calamity is shortened, not a single person would survive. Now think about that. This thing that's so bad that's going to cause all these problems, and it's going to be something that even unbelievers think we got to run from this. It's going to get so bad that your life is going to be threatened because of it. It's going to be a threat to your very existence. And finally, God is going to come in and cut it short and say, we can't let this go on, because eventually this thing is going to be so dangerous, so deadly, so poison that no one is going to be able to survive. So, for mercy's sake, God's going to come in and cut that time short because that's how bad it is. Verse 22. In fact, unless the time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. So, in order for this desecration to not overtake even the believers, God shows mercy by cutting it short, by stopping what's going to happen. Okay, so it's not going to last forever. So while this thing is happening, first of all, you want to be cautious of people who don't run from it. And secondly, you want to be cautious of people who are trying to advocate for it. Case in point. Verse 23. If anyone tells you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. So he's saying here, people can get up and they can be great speakers and they can sing and have money and power and influence and all this stuff. But they may get out there. But if they're saying something that you're going, that doesn't sound like what I've heard, be careful about that. Because when Jesus returns, and I promise we're getting to this part of this passage. When Jesus returns, nobody on earth is going to be going, gosh, I wonder if Jesus returned. They ain't going to leave no question. So when that happens, and so if anybody says it's here and you somehow missed it, Jesus is like, nah, when this happens, you're not going to miss it. It's going to be unmissable when this happens. Okay, so let's continue. Let's see here. Blah, blah. Verse 25. See, I have warned you about this ahead of time. So if someone tells you, look, the Messiah is out in the desert, don't even bother to go look. Okay? Just know that when it happens, y'all going to know. It's not going to be a secret. That's what it was the first time. Jesus kind of came in and again, we're going to talk about this on Sunday, came in the most unlikely of ways. Any of you who heard the sermon from last Sunday, I mean, literally the most unexpected way is how he came in. The next time, it's not going to leave any question. You're going to know. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. Don't bother to go look. Look, he's hiding here. Don't believe it. Verse 27. For as lightning flashes in the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. The entire sky from that side to that side, you're going to see it all over. And it's, again, unmissable when this happens. So it will be when the Son of Man returns. Verse 28. Just as the gathering of vultures shows there's a carcass nearby, so these signs indicate that the end is near. Immediately after the anguish of these days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. All right. One word here that I want to talk about for just a second is in the very first part of verse 29, he says, the anguish of those days. Okay. The word anguish here is tribulation, which is a word we used to throw around in church all the time. And it's the same word that's used in verse 9 and verse 22 of today of the readings for today. So tribulation shows up a couple of times in here. And basically what that means is just great calamity, great disaster, great falling away, great injury, great death, great fear. All these different things are going to be happening to the point that everybody's going to say, again, and you got to remember where we started. What was the first step in the process? People lose hope. Well, if people have already lost hope to the point that they become jealous of people who have it, to the point that their love grows cold, they start seeing signs like this. They're like, look, we were right all along. Everything's bad. And everything's falling apart and everything's a problem. And, they become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they have no hope before this even starts, of course, when this desecration begins to erode the entire world and make everything start to fall apart, of course they're going to say, gosh, we knew this was going to happen. Because without hope, that's what you expect, is for things to just be a disaster. And that's what they're going to become. And all these people who had no hope in the first place are just going to be like, yeah, we told you. And the people of God are going to be like, yeah, it ain't over yet. All right, verse 30. And then at last, the Son of Man, I'm sorry, verse 30. Then at last, the sign that the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens. Can't miss that. And there will be deep mourning among all the peoples of the earth. All the people of the earth are going to be in mourning because the people of the earth are the ones whose love has grown cold, who were jealous and had nothing to hang on to because their hope was gone. They've embraced the things of the earth. They embraced the sacrilegious desecration, whatever that was. They've embraced all these different things. They've been false prophets. They've presented lies as the truth. They've done all these things along the way. And because their love grew that cold, they're going to look up and be like, I can't feel anything about this. I am separate from this. Whatever's happening here is not for me. And that's because their lack of hope has led them to that place. And that is the saddest part of this reading. Now, the people who have endured, the people who have persevered, they're going to look at this and be like, yes, we knew this was coming. This is the happy ending we've been waiting for. But the people who have embraced the other stuff, there's nothing left for them because they can't embrace what's happening here because they've been working against it the whole time. It'd be great. And that causes mourning. And it's interesting that all through this process, and this is a note I jotted down here, there's no mourning that takes place in this entire chapter until now. Famines, no mourning. Earthquakes, no mourning. People's love growing cold, no mourning. People setting up this sacrilegious desecration, whatever that is, no mourning over that. People being thrown in jail just because of the hope that they have, nobody was mourning that. But now the people of the earth who have rejected all these things see Jesus, and now they're in mourning. The exact wrong response. To the believers, this is an exciting moment because, I'm not going to be here, or I'm not going to be here any longer to have to deal with any of this stuff. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to join my loved ones who are there. And I'm going to have, knees that work. And I'm going to have eyes that can actually see things. And I'm going to be able to eat great food and do. And that's what I'm going home to. That's what a believer says. An unbeliever says, yeah, but the sacrilegious desecration, which I'm sure they don't call it that, it's over there. And that's kind of where I threw my lot in life into. And they're going to be sorely disappointed. They see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven and with power and great glory. Again, unmissable. Verse 31. Now, and this is the part that I find very interesting. Verse 31. He will send out his angels with a mighty blast of a trumpet. Again, unmissable. And they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. So God is going to disperse a bunch of Uber drivers, Uber driver angels all around the world to pick up the believers, living and dead, pick them all up. So this idea that you have to run out to meet God, I think sometimes we interpret this middle section where he's saying, well, you got to flee to the hills and flee. It's not running out to meet the Lord. What he's talking about is running away from the sacrilegious desecration. We're running from that. We're not running toward God because we're already with God. Jesus is already present. But at this point, when he's gathering the believers, he's going to go pick us up. We're going to take a heavenly taxi to where we're getting to. So it's not like, you got to be in a certain place or a certain time or whatever. That's not how any of this works. These angels are going out to it says even here, the furthest ends of the earth, and pick everybody up. And do I mean the elect, Parker? Well, you darn well I don't mean the elect in the Presbyterian sense, but I do mean the elect in that those who have elected Jesus themselves, not the ones God have elected. Election goes that way, not this way. And I know that's what you meant. You're just trying to needle me. So, all right. We have come to the end here, and I need a drink of water. So I'm going to take a drink of water. And while I'm doing that, I want to give you a chance to put any questions, comments, or let me know how this was. You guys enjoy this? This is such an odd thing to talk to myself for an hour, but if any of you, I just like some feedback. Talk to me. Was this hopeful to you? Are you more despair now? Because I know when we talking about the end of time, people get really concerned, and I don't want you to be concerned. That's not what this is about. And Jesus says, "Are there people who should be concerned? Yes, but it's the people who are deceived by the sacrilegious desecration, whatever that is, to the believers." This is encouraging because lies are going to burn away in the light of the truth, and that's what's going on here. So, so talk to me, guys. What'd you think? Give me some feedback. Well, I drank out of the world's largest water bottle. Oh, thanks, Jess. I'm glad you tuned in. You must have switched over to your phone when you were on your way home. And Angie, I hope it's worth it. I know you were talking about earlier today. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks, Amy. Glad you were here. And yes, Matt, that's what God is for, because God is the antidote to the sacrilegious desecration. He is the truth in the light of falsehood. He is the light that exposes things that are not going to stand up to scrutiny. And that's why we got to advocate for that. We got to hang on to it because nobody else has got it. And I hope that it's something, I hope that my being here and you being a part of Wayne Street Church, you guys, I hope that you're finding out, ways that we can continue to hang on to things because it's too much at stake. So, all right, Matt, clap away. I appreciate that. Thanks, Roslyn. And Remy. Oh, well, hey, Remy, I hope you got a lot out of this. And thanks, Crystal. And hey, if you guys have any questions, in fact, before I sign off here tonight, I'm going to tell you what the scripture passage for next week is going to be. So if you want to take a look and send me some questions, things you'd like to cover as a part of this this thing next week, I would be very glad. And to do that and have you be a part of the conversation. Well, we were up to 40 at one point. We're hovering around 35 people right now. I think that's awesome. And I appreciate that. And yeah. Oh, thanks, Dixie. Thanks. I'm glad you were here. And Parker, it is hard to stay hopeful, Parker. I get that, but one of the things that we got to realize is if we don't do it, nobody else is going to. We have a responsibility to stay hopeful, even in light of things that are going to happen. And I know, hopeful is sort of like Thanksgiving. It's a choice, and we got to make that choice and hang on to it. So. Yeah, Trent, I'm glad you guys are enjoying this, and I'm glad to see some of you guys interacting with each other here in the chat. I think that's awesome. And anybody who I know my Aunt Kate tunes into these, and she's not able to, for some reason, whatever she's using doesn't allow her to chat. So I know she's here somewhere too. And perfect. Oh yeah, Joyce, don't be giving up. Once hope goes away, love grows cold. And lady, you got way too much love to let all that go cold. That's not going to work for you. So, yep, very good, very good. And Matt, you are welcome, buddy. It's glad to see you here today, and appreciate you guys coming out. Well, next week we're actually going to, I believe. Let me look here. We're going to continue next week with Matthew 25. So we're just going to keep going for next week. We're going to look at a few other passages then and weeks after that. But Jesus is going to follow up this teaching with a parable where he continues speaking. And I want to look at this parable for next week. The parable of the people who are like, Jesus, when did we see you in jail and come visit you? That one. And why that's going to be important in light of the hope that's so vital to this whole process. So if you want to look at Matthew 25 verses 31 to 46, that's where we're going next week. Matthew 25, 31 to 46. If you want to read that, I'd love to have your questions, anything specific you want me to address. I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about, and I would very much appreciate the opportunity to do that. So Matthew 25, 31 to 46. So, all right. Anything else anybody's got here for the good of the order? I sure do appreciate you guys coming in to be a part of this with me. Thank you for doing this, and it's awesome that you guys gave your time to be here. Please leave a like on this video, and know that this video will be on YouTube now. It'll just be here. So if you want to forward it to anybody, or anybody maybe enjoy this conversation, or you want to come back and watch it, it's going to be here. So be sure to be a part of that. And don't be stealing my line there, Matt. So I'm getting to that. So yeah. So anyways, appreciate you guys. Now Sunday we're going to transition back. We're going to talk about Jesus' birth. Like I said, we're going to be looking at the shepherds and what we learned from them. And I think I got a good angle on that. I was working on today, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. I appreciate you guys being here. We'll plan to be back here Tuesday 8:00. Next Tuesday, 8:00, and be a part of this conversation again. I would love it if you guys would all come back and join me for that. And all right, well, you guys have a great night. Go to bed, get some sleep, because that's important. And click a like on the video, and don't forget to wash your hands.